Politicians. Everybody complains about politicians. Everybody says they suck.
Yeah!
Well, where do people think these politicians come from? They don't fall out of the sky. They don't pass through a membrane from another reality. They come from American parents and American families, American homes, American schools, American churches, American businesses, and American universities, and they're elected by American citizens. This is the best we can do, folks. This is what we have to offer. It's what our system produces. Garbage in, garbage out. If you have selfish, ignorant citizens, you're going to get selfish, ignorant leaders. And term limits ain't going to do you any good. You're just going to wind up with a brand new bunch of selfish, ignorant Americans. So maybe it's not the politicians who suck. Maybe something else sucks around here, like the public. Yeah, the public sucks. There's a nice campaign slogan for somebody. The public sucks. Hope. Because if it's really just the fault of these politicians, then where are all the other bright people of conscience? Where are all the bright, honest, intelligent Americans ready to step in and save the nation and lead the way? We don't have people like that in this country. Everybody's at the mall, scratching his ass, picking his nose, taking his credit card out of his fanny pack and buying a pair of sneakers with lights in them. So I have solved this little political dilemma for myself in a very simple way. On election day, I stay home. I don't vote. I don't vote. Two reasons I don't vote. First of all, it's meaningless. This country was bought and sold and paid for a long time ago. They shuffle around every 4 years. Doesn't mean a thing. And secondly, I don't vote because I believe if you vote, you have no right to complain. People like to twist that around, I know. They say, well, if you don't vote, you have no right to complain. But where's the logic in that? If you vote and you elect dishonest, incompetent people and they get into office and screw everything up, well, you are responsible for what they have done. You caused the problem. You voted them in. You have no right to complain. I, on the other hand, who did not vote, who, in fact, did not even leave the house on election day, am in no way responsible for what these people have done and have every right to complain as loud as I want about the mess you created that I had nothing to do with. So I know that a little later on this year, you're going to have another one of those really swell presidential elections that you like so much. You'll enjoy yourselves. It'll be a lot of fun. I'm sure as soon as the election is over, your country will improve immediately. As for me, I'll be home on that day doing essentially the same thing as you. The only difference is when I get finished masturbating, I'm going to have a little something to show for it, folks. Thank you very much.
Hi, and welcome to Ward 13 2021. I'm here with Gonzo.
Hello.
Gonzo, how are you?
I'm good. Happy 2021.
Yeah.
It's good to be back.
How's 2021 been to you lately?
It's been good. I've sold some art, about 4 things. And Micah, my son, is saying crazy words now. It's awesome.
Nothing obscene, I hope.
No. Well, it's hard to tell when a toddler's talking what he's really saying. You know what I mean?
So,
he can blend in an R with a W, like twy, a twying, you know what I mean? Which is
Well,
charming.
the French word for three to some people does sound obscene. Trois.
Twa, yes.
Yeah, trois. I mean, how does Trois become trois?
I don't know, but that's just obscene
Yeah, it could be. It could be.
for some people. The
Speaking-
line's in the gutter.
Speaking of obscenities, you wanted to talk about COVID at the Valley Street Jail. You
Yes.
mentioned it as a subject.
Manchester's hidden secret, dirty little secret.
Why is it hidden?
I don't know. It's not hidden very well. It's right there, but it seems to be people put their blinders on whenever they think about it. It's like it is right here. Now, granted, I think it's like, oh, who cares? If they're in jail, da 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 da. They might have it coming, but no one should have it coming. You know what I mean? Like no one should be. First of all, you're forced to be there from their own devices, whatever it may be, but they are forced to be there in lockdown, and it seems like there's zero precautions taken. And last I heard, they were at like a 50% rate or something like
I
that.
think it was higher than that, you mentioned.
Yeah, I mean, the union leader did an article saying half the inmates have tested positive, and that's the ones that are tested. You know what I mean? Like, and I remember a couple of weeks ago, someone asked him about that. No one could get an answer, and they're just like, probably because they knew they weren't getting ahead of it, and they probably didn't do it the right way. So now it's come to a head,
Well, aren't
There should be some more outrage about this, though. I mean, when every single person in there has got it, and like you mentioned it earlier, like it's not just the 2 weeks of symptoms you get; it screws you. It damages you.
if you get COVID, yeah.
Yeah. So it's like there's a lot of people out there that are like walking around, kind of, I'm almost jealous. It's like, oh, I had it. I'm good now. Well, you're
Wow.
good now, but I'd rather not have it than have it. And like, if you're forced to be somewhere in there, it's basically an added sentence. You have to do 4 months, and you have to get COVID.
Oh, in the jail, though, some people are in there longer than just a year, aren't they?
No, I thought it was like, a place you go for anything under a year. And if like it's over a year, I assumed they put you in
Yeah,
prison.
that used to be the county farm when you did up to 364 days, which is up in Goffstown.
Yeah, because anything else would be prison, I believe. But I'm not an expert on the criminal justice program. All I know is it just seems like, anybody can land themselves in jail, whether or not, they did anything. Some people are innocent, believe it or not. Not many. Most
Well,
people
it's
aren't.
also a holding jail at times because you're arrested and you're put there before you go to trial.
Yeah, so there you go. So
Some people
you
are.
could end up going to trial and beating your case, and then, they're forcing COVID on you. Essentially, they're not sticking you with a needle, but they're not protect. I don't know. Seems like a lot of people are getting out of being in jail right now because of COVID. Like, that,
Yes, somebody that
some
had-
high-profile personalities, and
Mark Hayward did a story for the Union Leader. Was it last week or before? That somebody who had fired a firearm in an apartment and was there. A judge let him out because he had COVID. And in the Mark Hayward article, the guy had hardly any medical care at all. He hadn't even seen a doctor, and
Yeah.
he'd seen the head nurse once, and the other nurses barely knew what was going on with him, even though he was suffering from COVID.
now this place is for the last 20-something years. I've been hearing, nightmare stories about Valley Street.
Right. And
And I wonder why it's not being curbed. It's not being
well,
remedied. Or like, if there was a problem 20 years ago, and there's a pandemic coming out, you could probably predict the writing on the wall that there's going to be an issue that stems from, first of all, the mismanagement of it.
yes.
So you would assume that things would go wrong. And here we are, over 50%. So what does that mean? that means the other 50% yeah, gotta get it.
Yeah, can get it.
Expose
Or
as
might
much as
have
you
it.
can. Yeah,
Yeah.
as much exposure as one can get. You know, now if it was a guard, they'd send them home with pay,
Well, guards have been getting it, I
right?
hear.
And they would get sent home to quarantine. I would assume they'd still get paid, and they would be treated like humans. Now, what are you gonna do when you get it here? They're gonna find another guy with it, and they're gonna bunk you all together.
We have an incoming call. Hi, welcome to Ward 13.
Hey, boys, it's Easy G.
Oh, hi, how are you?
Eric, you have any?
Hey, welcome back, John.
Oh, hello.
Eric,
Thank you.
why don't you tell us about when you were at Valley Street?
Now, believe it or not, a good friend of mine spent there overnight getting in a fight, and he says, no place you want to be.
Well, that's what we've always heard.
Good friend of mine.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I know a couple people that have ended up over there, and believe me, they always tell me the same story. No place you want to be.
Yeah.
No, it's no place you want to be. It's like considered one of the worst, and that on top of you're gonna get COVID now. So if you go to Valley Street tomorrow, you're going to get COVID-19.
Yeah.
I know it's horrible. I've heard that story, Gonzo. It's horrible.
Well, 5 years ago.
I don't know what the answers are.
Well, the answers are there are answers. 5 years ago, the union leader did the series on the medical care there, how disastrous it was. You know, a woman that was pregnant, her baby died, and they didn't do anything. And
Did the guy die there?
Oh yeah, people have died there.
There's probably a lot of people.
Guy
that
broke his
did.
neck. You know that story, John?
Well, that was Fern Gelinas. Is that Fern Gelinas? He
That was a horrible story.
well, his neck might have been broken and fractured at Elliott Hospital because
Either way, it was a horrible story for him to go like that.
right when he got to Valley Street Jail, because I guess he was being violent because of his drugs or something. Not drugs, street drugs. It was for he might have been bipolar or something. And when he got to the Valley Street Jail, they had told the medical personnel that he might have had a fracture of his, neck because he had hit his head. But at Valley Street Jail, it just got worse, and they didn't give him medical attention, I think, for 48 hours. And he wound up paralyzed.
Horrible.
He should have been immediately, sent to the emergency room, but they didn't.
Yeah, right now, the whole thing is being taken care of by the Health and Human Services now. A judge kind of put that in motion.
In the state.
Yeah. And
Who's in charge of that place, John?
The county commissioners, for us, it's Tony Pappas.
right.
Tony Pappas has never done anything really about the situation there yet. People voted
Shame on
in.
him.
So that's the person that beat
No,
you
Tony is a woman.
by 30 votes, right?
No.
Wow.
We only got like 45.
Anyways, I'll let you go. Have a great show.
Oh, yeah. Take care, Eric. Hope you feel well. And everything's fine with you. Bye.
Bye-bye. Yeah. 27 staffers and 100 inmates.
Jeez. How many staff are they?
I don't know. That's all of them, I think. I have no idea. But
Yeah.
that's crazy. I mean, the staff is going to obviously more prone to exposure, I would assume, because
Yes.
they're in close contact with almost everyone. You know what I mean? Like when they get a cough and do it, an inmate can kind of keep to himself, but at the same time, if an inmate has it, yeah, the staffers would get it too.
Well, the medical care there is woefully inadequate. When last year, when I was talking about the Valley Street Jail, I read excerpts from lawsuits where they said there is a continued, this pattern of just indifference to human life there. That they switch doctors, and they pay this tremendous amount. I think there's one doctor who barely even goes there, in 30 days. He might go there 2 or 3 days. We can follow up on this. This isn't because you brought up what we were going to talk about, and I didn't really want to go over all that stuff again. And
a lot of it comes from the fact that people treat these people like they're not human. Like
Well, the thing is,
they're
they don't want
second-tier people.
they don't want to spend the money. They don't want to spend the money on adequate health care. Yet, in one of the lawsuits, they talked about, was it $350,000 for 12 hours of care? I mean, it was just outrageous, the amount of money being spent for the level of care.
Yeah.
And the care is utterly inadequate. But yet, Tony Pabst gets reelected every time. So, you know.
Right.
So they're not going to do anything. These people that talk
Why does it
about...
cost so much, though? It's just because they're... I was told, like, medical is so expensive because people don't pay their bills. So they,
But this
so
is-
they overcharge the people who do to compensate it. Well, that just makes no sense. I'm sorry. That's just stupid logic. So, like, so if someone doesn't pay me for a piece of art, I have to charge the next guy twice as much to compensate it? Like, that's
Ooh.
not...
Yeah, but the point is that that's
Logical.
talking about the cost of health care
Right.
and society at large. This is a contract from the Valley Street Jail,
Seems like-
Hillsborough County. And it is quite a lot of money for the care being provided.
Yeah, a lot of these contracts have, like, beefed up numbers to
I don't know.
put some other pocket money in some... You know what I mean?
I'm not going to say that.
Well, I'm not either. I'm just assuming a lot of these deals, these contracts that are made, there's got to be some beef money involved in there. It has to be.
Well, all of our state...
$350,000 is absurd.
The county commission answers to the county convention, which is all the state reps from the county. They're supposed to be watching over this. I don't think they much care.
No, it's not a priority for Republicans for sure.
Well, most of the state reps are Democrats in this county.
But the
I
county commissioner is a Republican.
thought. Right.
So if that's who's in charge, it's not on her plate, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, but they were...
Doesn't suit her constituents.
it went on when there was from Nashua, there's three commissioners. He was a Democrat.
So if you had won...
He didn't... it didn't change from him.
If you had won this election, this would be a focal point for you?
Well, yeah, as much
Yeah.
as you could.
Right.
But...
You'd probably get frustrated with all the barriers you run into and all that. But at least you'd try, you know.
you know, it depends. People don't care.
I tried storming City Hall in your honor like they did for Trump, but I was the only one there.
When was that?
I had no impact. You were up in the mountains catching bald eagles or something, whatever you're doing.
Mm,
Those are illegal. You shouldn't catch those.
no, there weren't any up there.
Yeah. Anyway, that's all. We don't have to get too much into it. I just think that, you drive by it, you're like, oh, God, it sucked to be there. And that's the end of your thought about it, until, like, someone gets out that or whatever, or you just hear something, and it's like, it is right here. Let's
You
stop
don't see
pretending
Black
that
Lives Matter or any of these so-called liberals saying a word.
What-
do you?
Here?
Yeah, in Manchester or in Hillsborough. You don't
There's
hear
a
them
small,
saying
there's a
anything.
small group. It's not like before.
No, where are they?
I don't know. I guess it's not a hot dish anymore. It's not as popular.
Never was. They never said anything during the
Well,
election.
there were a couple rallies.
It
There's
had
a
nothing
couple-
to do with the Valley Street Jail.
A couple groups went on Matt's show. A couple groups went on Peter's show and talked.
Yeah, but that's BLM.
right,
and
that's
stuff
what,
like that.
Yeah, I thought you just said.
But they didn't actually do anything. They didn't get involved. They didn't highlight this issue.
No, they didn't. No, this issue at Valley Street?
Right.
Well, I don't know if that's a Black Lives Matter issue. I mean,
Why isn't it?
I don't know.
Defund the police. This and that. A black kid died there. We did a couple shows about him. They didn't care. They didn't say anything. The people that talked to me about it, I went to City Hall, said we should come here this day, and we'll go talk about it to the alderman. Nobody showed up.
I think
They stopped talking to me.
I think the problem is that, like, I wasn't aware of it until you told me. I don't think that people.
But
There's
I
no
know
light
that
being
people
shined on
are aware of it because I
They are.
told them.
Okay, so.
And then they immediately stopped talking to you.
Right, because, well, you don't. So, you can be the hitch that someone doesn't want to attach their horse to, possibly.
Yeah, but but it's nobody. They could do it themselves.
Right. The problem is there's not enough people, there's not enough leaders, and
Sometimes it's not enough. They didn't do anything. They had their issue, which was, I believe, was, like every other politician, it's to raise money. When BLM started, here it was, Liz Ropp and I were the only people that I knew that went to their rally in City Hall when the two aldermen had said things they objected to.
Oh, yeah.
And none of the other people that were social media warriors, they didn't bother to show up. And then they didn't do really much of anything except on social media. That to them is the battleground. And I know one, talking about defund the police, which is a ridiculous
that's pretty
mantra.
That's stupid. They need more money.
And she voted for Tony Pappas. She's a nice person.
Well,
it's just all talk. It's just talk.
Well, I voted.
And BLM then put the thing. Oh, people say where to send the money. And then that, there we go.
Yeah, right.
Money.
John Hopwood Lane.
I've never raised any money.
I haven't.
These
either.
people didn't even give me $5 for my campaign.
Well,
we live in a city where the people are cowardly. This is a city of cowards.
I would.
I'm not talking about Joe Lavasser, because he certainly isn't a coward.
No, he's
or
not a coward.
Even Stinky Gerard. They get out there, we might criticize them and
not
think
a
they can be
coward.
jerks, but they actually go and do stuff. They put some skin, into the game.
Right, they can be jerks, and they can be active too. To be inactive is almost worse than what they're doing.
But when Jim
But
O'Connell,
if people, so if the herd started moving, people would join in like a conga line at a wedding.
no,
but
they
one
won't.
wants to
Not
start.
here. No, not here.
They wouldn't join in if there was a little less resistance. It just seems like, well, I don't, because when you brought light to Valley Street last time, you got a little pushback, didn't
From
you?
who?
I don't know. I just feel like, not to get too into it, I just feel like you had some issues that you might not want to
People are
revisit.
afraid.
Right. You couldn't get anyone with you, is what you mean. So you said, who's coming with me? And no one came with you.
Well, it's just not me. Jim O'Connell
Jim O'Connell?
sponsored it before. He's a at-large school board member. $15 an hour. Where were all these so-called progressives that are on social media talking about $15 an hour? I talked to them. I asked them to come. Not one of them showed up. I went because Jim's a friend of mine, and I agreed with Donna Susie, $12, $12.50, whatever. She had a good compromise when they were trying to push that up in Concord.
So you think it should be $15?
No, I
Or
said
higher.
what I just said is Donna
said
Susie is
$12.50.
$12.50.
But you said compromise, so
Yeah, Donna came up with a
So
good
you came
compromise
down.
because you're not going to get $15. But the thing is,
why not?
nobody showed up for Jim O'Connell's. None of these people that are online raising money for their groups that have democracy in the name and other, wonderful titles, they didn't show up. I'll say some of them had in the past had done stuff.
Yeah, so what do you think? You think it's cowardly, or
What
do
would
you
you
think
call it? Cowardice.
Unaware,
Some people that are more activists, they're just burned out because they've tried in the past and nothing
So
happened.
say someone's watching this at home, and they're like, "Man, no one asked me. I would have done something." Like,
No, they
how would
wouldn't.
they get a? How would they? What was the first thing they would
Well,
do?
what you just said is they're watching at home, but they didn't show up either.
Yeah, but we talk about everything from the Beatles to baseball to this.
It's much easier.
So it's not like they know what we're talking about. So if they
Well,
hear
if you
this,
watch my show, I was running for county commissioner, right, and trying to highlight some of these issues.
Right.
Union leader didn't.
so say
cover
someone's
me.
watching right now for the first time, what step would they take?
I'm not going to say anything.
Reach out to
anymore.
you?
I just ran the George Carlin video.
What, the 7 words?
No, it's about politicians.
Yeah.
Now we got Joe Biden. One of the first thing he does, his COVID plan is yet another giveaway to the health insurance industry, and he got rid of the public health option. Here we're in this great crisis. You should have universal health care, but he got rid of that. And the person that he wants to put as the head of the antitrust division of the Justice Department is a former Google counsel. Google's a monopoly that should be broken up. It's, we live in the United States, so there's nothing that happens outside of the U.S., including Canada. What happens up there doesn't matter to us. Australia's been fighting Google, and Google's threatening to cut it off.
So Biden
And Europe is fighting Google.
Biden appointed a Google guy to do.
Yeah, a woman who was a counsel for Google. Google's a monopoly.
Right. Well, no one's binging anything nowadays.
Google's
if I get any
awful.
website that isn't Google, I literally Google to get to Google, because Google is the...
Google's is about advertising.
Right, but they do a good image search.
No, Bing is better for images.
Bing sucks.
Not for images, not for news.
What about, okay, so
And videos.
Biden...
Maybe you're right. Maybe it's Bing as videos, but we're getting off the thing.
Well, no,
the
is your
point
chance-
is you have a monopoly, and
But I don't see how Google has anything to do with Biden. Could someone was a counselor for them in the past?
because Trump, the administration, instituted an antitrust lawsuit.
Right, so Biden did what wrong?
He's taking Google,
In giving them power?
one of their lawyers, and making them the head of the antitrust.
Okay.
Starting with Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton got rid of the antitrust law. He was the first president since McKinley who did have a successful prosecution of the Sherman antitrust law, which is from the 19th century. The Democrats represent big business
Well, one thing
and
that...
Wall Street. That's all they represent.
I tend
And
to
they
remember-
use fringe, what do they call them? Wedge issues, they used to call them.
I remember the presidential order was a big deal back in the day, and what Trump did is he kind of watered it down a lot. And now,
What are you talking about, order?
to do a presidential order,
Oh, yeah, well,
it,
they
it
run
used
the-
to have some weight. Now I feel like Biden's done about 25 of them already.
Oh, well, they have a big effect
And,
on
like,
things.
It's because Trump would just do them on a whim. For me, back in the day at least, a presidential order means, okay, I have no option. I have exhausted my option.
Oh, no,
Now it's the first thing. Now everything runs around that. It used to be the last thing. Now it's like, because he's like, well, I got to get rid of all these policies he did, so I'm going to do all these.
The president of the United States is like a king. Wasn't supposed to be that way, but when you create, one of the criticisms of creating a president was that it is a break on a parliament, on Congress, which is true. These presidential signing orders, they just mushroomed. Obama signed I was going to use the S word, a incredible amount.
Well,
It's running
didn't
the
know
government
that.
through fiat.
I
through
thought it kind of started with Trump. Like Trump just.
Oh
took
no,
it.
he just used it. It
He-
started really Truman, but it really took off with Nixon, and got worse.
Well,
as things
Trump's
went
the
on.
reason why the McRib's back. He did a presidential order to get the McRib back.
Jesus,
I'm kidding.
I'm thinking I'm about to rat.
I'm kidding, but he did do one for Twitter. He tried immediately to block what they did. See, Trump's presidential orders at the end, it didn't seem like they were actually getting anywhere. They kind of like, yeah, sure, okay.
Well, he was the worst president in history.
Man,
in my
he was
opinion,
something.
But
He was
you
something.
know, the idea that Biden's going to issue
Yeah, I'm
in
not
the land
crazy.
of milk and honey.
I'm not crazy about Biden. I feel like, honestly, if you ran against Trump, it wouldn't matter. It was Trump versus himself was that election, basically. People who voted were either, I'm voting against Trump. Basically, that's what got a lot of butts off the floor.
Well, he dominated the election in a way
I don't know if
nobody
Biden.
has.
I don't know if anyone's really thrilled about Biden. They're just thrilled that it isn't 4 more years of Trump.
Yeah.
So when you win an election like that, your fanfare isn't going to be very high the whole time. In fact, he's probably prone to a lot of scrutiny, and I wouldn't doubt it if he doesn't run again, if he kind of tries to hand off the football.
Well, Biden's 78 years old.
Right. Well, most people, when they win their first term, no matter what, plan on running for a second term. I would
Oh, you
assume.
have to.
I would assume.
Otherwise, you're treated as a lame duck.
Right. But
And
the transition in this case seems to be going in that direction, where
well, I
Kamala
can't
would look,
see how he would
look
run,
really good in that seat to a lot of people. right? Do you think a lot of people voted for Biden because of his running mate?
No,
Kamala, right?
Kamala.
Kamala, okay.
She's another one that's a fraud.
Yeah, she's
Here's a person that put more black people in jail than George Wallace or Orville Faubus or Lester Maddox or any of those old racists, the Southern governors. When she was the DA of San Francisco and the Attorney General of California, she basically ran and put black people in jail.
well, she's
It's the
definitely a
pragmatism.
She was definitely a hard one, like and no joke. But at the same time,
Here she is criticizing Joe Biden as a racist during the primaries. And then, it's his.
man, I wouldn't
it's
go
politics,
that far.
right?
I wouldn't go that far.
But Joe
She
was
told a story about the boss and all that.
and that's
I-
racism.
I guess you could say that.
In her, the way she's telling it. But then they're buddies. They're politicians.
her voice
It's
is a
all
little-
like Mr. Carlin had. It's just masturbation, just hot air.
Is that what you're doing in Montana the whole time?
It wasn't in Montana.
Hot air.
I'll tell you.
Gets lonely up there.
Politics. I didn't watch anything except for January 6th, but I don't want to talk about that today.
January 6th. That was the inciting of the people, right?
Hey, let's put the camera on Gonzo because I'm going to make a phone call, and that would be boring to look at. It's time to talk. We've talked a little. Is there anything else you have to say about Manchester?
No.
Anything happened while I was gone for a month?
Let's see. Let's see. No. Well, I haven't been into the studio very often. I haven't been on.
Have you
going
been
on-
blackballed?
No. Matt and Jenny are kind of just keeping it to themselves for the Connerton, and then Daryl Dion bumped me off Thursdays. So, but I'm not bitter.
What do you mean?
No, I'm
He's
just
on
kidding.
all the time.
He comes in with his Yamaha, his piano.
Hello.
Okay, Peter Stilla, how are you doing?
I'm doing peachy. Is this Hopwood Comic John?
It's John Hopway, to be correct.
Yeah,
I don't like
Gonzo.
being called by my last name. It reminds me of the Army.
And me.
Well, we already
Sir.
we talked about politics, and that's enough to make one wretch. And speaking of politics,
Leaving me out of it.
speaking of politics,
Yeah, I would have been making everybody rich.
let's talk about the Baseball Hall of Fame voting. Nobody made it.
Hey.
Oh.
Yes, they had a election and nobody showed up.
Nobody.
Nobody got in.
What is that? They had a Hall of Fame election and nobody came.
Well, they usually, a lot of people get in with the Veterans Committee, correct?
Yeah,
That's a lot of them, most of them. They have high
a good
standards.
deal. People,
I mean, Griffey Jr. was he
he
unanimous?
was the first ballot.
Was he unanimous, or did he? I feel like he
No,
got all but
only
one.
one player has been unanimous.
And who was that?
And it was like a relief picture, which, like, of all things, is like.
Rivera?
Yeah, but he was arguably the greatest relief pitcher ever.
Yeah, he threw a cut.
Well,
fastball.
yeah, but it was only recently that relief pitches were even considered for the Hall.
Hey, Hoyt Wilhelm.
So to make one.
Here we go.
The
Here's
first unanimous choice ever was just
Well, how
kind
did-
of odd, I thought.
well, Hoyt Wilhelm got in back in '79, and he was mostly a
Wilhelm
reliever.
was like he started a lot of games.
Yeah, he won like 200 games, and he threw a no hitter. But he was famous for being a probably the first reliever with a substantial career.
So Schilling asked to be
I guess
taken
that
off the
Raleigh
ballot.
Fingers was the first real reliever to make it, right?
Raleigh Fingers, he got in, and then Bruce Suter, which people still bitch about for some reason.
Eckersley.
Eckersley,
He was the starter at first.
who was also a starter, and remember,
Eckersley was a starter for most of his career.
but he's in the Hall of Fame as a reliever.
He did the bulk of his work as an A's
Well, I
reliever.
think it was, I mean, his entire career was certainly
Yeah.
Hall of Fame.
Yeah, but he was only a top starter for like 4 or 5 years.
But without that, he probably wouldn't have gone in.
He is an MVP and a Cy Young winner as a reliever because Tony La Russa, building on Billy Martin, who created the modern relief pitcher, because he was a disciple of Casey Stengel, who created, the modern reliever back with the Yankees. But Eck got in as a reliever, and
So, John, who are some notables that didn't get
John
voted in
Smoltz
this year?
A good part. Some years he was an outstanding reliever, but he's also an outstanding starter.
Who was on the ballot this year that could have?
I mean, he was a starter for like
Many
7/8
years.
of his career.
Smoltz?
Yeah, and then they threw him in. He like 55 games, remember, for a couple of years.
You know what they do now? They in the World Series, they just take their number one and pitch him every single game, like Bumgardner did. I mean, he was the guy, like Pedro did for the Red Sox. You take your best and you put him in at 7th, 8th, and 9th.
Well, people thought Kurt.
Well, yeah, I mean, in the postseason,
Yeah.
You can do anything you
have,
want.
like, the off days for travel, you only have to use like 3 starters.
Or
in a 7
remember
series.
CC Sabathia, the Brewers using him up like they put so much wear and tear on that guy.
Well, you have to go with what works
Yeah.
and try because the other
But
guys might be blown out.
My question was, no one got into the Hall of Fame. Who are some notables that could have?
People thought Kurt Schilling was finally going to get into the Hall of Fame, and
You see that Schill threw a hissy fit and said, "I don't even want to be on the
Yeah.
is that him?
22 ballot."
He
Was
wants
that
to be
him in the
off.
background?
Yeah. He said,
Yeah, it was like a hissy fit.
Geez, he's having a hissy fit right now, huh?
9 times he's been
I
passed
got my,
over.
I got my barking dog here, so so
Oh, I thought that was Kurt Schilling.
I'm going to tell Maisie to be quiet over
Maisie.
here. Maisie.
So Schilling, anyone else?
Well, Barry Bonds and Clemens didn't get in.
Right, but no first-time eligibles that were.
No, there was
Because that's
no.
what usually happens.
No, there were no first time.
There's usually a shoe-in or two.
Got a whiff.
Yeah,
Um,
last year Jeter got in, and he was almost unanimous. Only one person didn't
Yeah.
vote for him.
Who was that? No one knows, right?
No.
Yeah, I wonder who that was. Has that person ever come clean?
Listen, Willie Mays and Hank Aaron weren't unanimous either.
Oh, Babe Ruth wasn't.
Well, Babe Ruth was elected under a different process. He was one of the original people that went in. And
Well, the point being that of all the players in Major League history, it's just very curious to me that a relief pitcher was the first unanimous choice. But that's neither here nor there.
Johnny Bench wasn't
Mariano
unanimous.
Definitely a deserving Hall of Famer. It's just
It took Joe DiMaggio 3 times to get into the Hall of Fame. I mean, But
yeah, that's incredible.
I can't believe Vizquel's not in the Hall of Fame. He won 11. He won 11 Gold Gloves. Had over 2,600 hits. I mean, what are they waiting for?
I believe I said yesterday to you. I thought he was a lock, but he's running into issues for some reason. And meanwhile, Scott Rowland is just moving up the ranks.
What do you need
Another
to get
third
in?
baseman.
He's one of those guys that he was like a national leaguer, like most of his career, and I mean, he was somebody I was aware of, but to like all of a sudden his career's over, and you look at it and you look at his numbers, and you're saying, "Holy cow!"
They're very good.
I really, wasn't aware of him much while he was actually playing.
So Schilling got 70%. How much do you need to get in?
75.
So he's ticking up every single time. You'd think he'd want to stay on.
Well, the reason he's not in the Hall of Fame is why, Peter?
Outspoken.
Because he
the
is
character.
what my mother would call an FA, and we can't to see either word of that.
Right, but that doesn't mean there's not
He
a lot of
is-
FAs in the Hall of Fame.
Well, Steve
Ty
Carlton had very bizarre opinions about stuff, but he never talked to the press, so
Ty
you only
Cobb
heard
was a
about it through
very
rumors. He's not some jerk that just says all this
So
stuff.
Omar Vizquel, I would say he should have been in. Billy
Yeah.
Wagner, I would say he should have been in.
Yeah, Billy Wagner
Gary
is another
Sheffield,
reliever.
Aaron Hugh Jones, those two. Manny Ramirez only got 28%.
Well, he got busted for pits.
That's the big one, yeah.
I
A lot of
think-
people on this
Manny,
list.
Bonds and Clemens, even though Clemens, was acquitted,
Yeah.
much like some other people in the news, everybody knows that he used PEDs. So he's one of that group that they'll have to wait for the Veterans Committee.
The thing
to
is,
have any mercy on their
Clemens
souls.
and Bonds got their highest
Well, the
numbers
thing
to
is,
date. 62.
Clemens and Bonds up through, let's say, 1998. Oh, they say Clemens was using with Toronto in the early 90s or whatever. Or they had Hall of Fame careers before, like Bonds.
Exactly.
They had
both of them were Hall of
Bonds had
Famers
already
before
won
they
3
took their first needle.
MVPs. They say that he said
there's a punitive quality to it, I guess, in the minds of some of these voters.
they said that he got he got really angry at McGuire and particularly Sosa. Suddenly they're got this they're doing the chasing and breaking Maris's record, and everybody's forgetting about him. So he'd prove something, wouldn't he? He'd go on pads. Remember the year he shows up and his head looks like it's Charlie Brown, and he's in his mid-30s and he breaks Babe Ruth's record for slugging, 847.
He had more home runs than singles that year. Do you know that?
Yeah, it was ridiculous.
And he had double the walks.
Are you talking about Bonds?
Yeah,
or
Bonds.
McGuire now?
Bonds.
McGuire always admit that he took steroids. It's just he was saying he took them orally and that they were legal, and
it doesn't
everybody
count.
knew. All the sports writers knew what was going on. They knew the guys were shooting up. They saw them shooting up. It's just until the Book of Shadows, which came out in 2002 by those Bay Area journalists, that they blew the lid off stuff. Balco was right near that massage parlor where they caught Jerry Rice but let him go, which was near where I lived in Burlingame. You'd go get shot up and get a nice deep tissue massage.
So-
Jerry Rice, he was such a god. They bust the place and he's in it. And okay, you go. At the same year, I think they got the assistant DA,
Manny was on the Mitchell report, correct?
I'm not sure, but he did get nailed.
Now that one, he was.
It's like Palmeiro got nailed.
That one.
Palmeiro
They all
got
gave
nailed.
tests
Listen,
saying nothing would count.
The sports-
And then now he's not in the Hall of Fame because of it.
The sports writers knew who was on drugs, and then they would vote them MVPs.
I don't know how Vizquel's
and the thing is, Palmeiro was the worst because he was one of those guys who actually sat before Congress and, wagged his finger at
Yeah, he lied.
at his
So did Clemens.
questioners, much like Lance Armstrong did, and
Yeah, whoops.
And then, it turns out he was just forget it.
Clemens lied to Congress. That's why he got busted and tried. But they screwed the trial up.
He didn't lie. He misremembered.
No, he lied. And the second trial, I can tell you all about that because the brother-in-law of a woman I lived in was the guy who had to prosecute him the second time. And he didn't want to do that. And, let's not, the sports writers are full of crap, though, because they're always saying, well,
So they
they
should
won't make
a-
decisions.
Yeah,
you
they
know?
should make all the things that made their job easier, like, computers and speaking and talking into your phone and all that, and get rid of it and make them go back to typewriters since they're all about no performance enhancing.
Well, I like that. Yeah, I'm going to steal that from you. Sammy Sosa, they found out, tested positive that year where they did testing, and they were supposed to destroy all the tests, but for some reason the union didn't destroy them.
Right.
They all got leaked.
That's what
remember?
happened to Manny.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that Mitchell
And,
report.
and Sammy Sosa, let's not forget the time he was hitting and his bat exploded and enough corn
Yeah.
flew out to keep the Titanic afloat.
And
I thought
nobody,
that was Greg Nettles.
nobody batted an eye
No,
when.
that that was Sammy Sosa.
Oh, that was at the beginning of his career. And then he went to steroids.
Yeah, but it was a red flag of things to come.
You know, the thing
This
is,
guy's willing to cheat.
McGuire and Sammy Sosa were such nice guys, you know.
Oh.
McGuire was like a saint.
Nobody thought twice about it. They
He
were
gave
so
10%,
cool watching that.
He gave 10% of his income to charity. He was a great community. Like Barry Bonds, nobody liked Barry Bonds.
Sammy Sosa was so lovable. In that, then no one even thought about the fact that they could have been doing this, and then now they're both, you know.
A couple of guys died when they were building like the new park at Pittsburgh, and they were asking like the superstars to give memorabilia, and Barry Bonds refused, and like the vice president of the Pittsburgh, it came out just like a couple of years ago, says, "Well, I hope he dies of cancer."
Oh, nice.
Nobody liked him at all. Well, we were in the Bay Area. I remember when Bonds, my father was always, as a Braves fan as a kid, was a National League fan, then the Atlanta Braves. And we got to talk about Hank Aaron before we go. But when we picked up Barry Bonds, he said, "You're getting the best player in baseball," and we did. But
Yeah, no doubt.
And then it's like A-Rod. If A-Rod hadn't taken steroids, he'd been one of the all-time greats too. But he said he admitted I started taking. He got busted twice, even in the post era. I started taking in high school.
Yeah, he's not even on this list.
No, his year is next year.
You think he'll get in? He might. He's pretty tied into that community.
The way things are going now.
But he is tied into that whole writers community.
He is now a talking head, and he's a very good one too.
He'll get in because if Bonds is up to 61%,
he was another one of those guys like Rafael Palmeiro, and these other guys adamantly denying.
Yeah, but Peter, he had to.
I think in a lot of writers' minds, that's like worse than just like getting busted and not saying anything,
Well, the thing is there are players in the Hall of Fame that have taken PEDs. It's just nobody has any proof on them. I mean, PEDs were around in the 70s, used in football and stuff. But now I'm starting to wonder about the Nautilus machine and Freddie. They said that Freddie Lynn used the Nautilus, remember, when he had that great year in '79. It's probably shooting up. But
well, I think Nomar did that year. He hit 35 home runs right away. When he was on the cover of Sports Illustrated.
What about Brady Anderson?
You knew what happened to Nomar when he finally went to the Cubs, and then he was that bad, and he hit a ground ball, took a step, and his scrotum exploded.
He's a jerk too.
Nomar is he has the scarlet letter right now too.
He was a classic case of when you meet your hero and they turn out to be a-holes. That was him. I met him, and he was that.
Oh, yeah. But see, it's like some guys, like Mark McGuire is the nicest person that you could ever meet. And I thought, of all the people that this tragedy, hit, I feel sorry for him the most because he was a nice guy. But, if Bonds and the Clemens got in, I couldn't, caterwaul about it because before, they were just great players from the beginning.
But there's highs up. They're 61%. Respectively, and they're going up every year.
I'm surprised they're that high.
So I think that indication would tell you that A-Rod will get in next year.
Okay, now Peter and I had a big fight yesterday.
That might break the seal.
Because in the Hall of Fame, they got a clause. What's the clause called, Peter?
It's called the character clause.
The character clause, which I insist is about cheating and gambling.
And you were insisting that
it's all about
1921, when Mountain Landis became commissioner, it was solely about gambling.
Gambling and cheating, yeah, which gambling was the big sin. And because, to me, that Curt Schilling is just a jerk and saying all these horrible things, to me, from my opinion, is it's irrelevant, but I consider him a borderline Hall of Famer anyways. And if he'd got in, I would have been angry.
He's a borderline guy. What is it, 216 wins?
Right. And he had but he had almost, did he have 3,000 or 2,900 strikeouts? I think he had more. And he only had 750 walks. He had tremendous control. But so did Clemens.
There's some people with some suspect character in the Hall of Fame, though.
Yeah, but, like I said, being a racist, being a drunk, being a womanizer, or even a whoremonger like Babe Ruth and all that. Hey, that was part of being a ball player back in the old days.
What is whoremongering?
Womanizer.
You know,
Babe once did 7
That's
women in the
one way of
bordello. Babe didn't just start. They used to say
he mongered.
He drank a barrel of bootleg beer, 12 hot dogs, and had 2 chorus girls before a game. And I guess that was true too.
Cool.
He was superhuman.
Yeah.
Only, Hank Aaron died, one of the all-time greats that you can only mention in the names of like Babe Ruth, Willie Mays, Ted Williams, Ty Cobb, and it's amazing. The only thing he didn't do is like Babe Ruth, win an ERA title, right?
He had a long career, real long career.
Oh yeah, he played he didn't play with Boston.
He never
He
had
played
any.
with Milwaukee. I think 54 to 75.
He had a couple big number years, but mostly
he
leveled out about 35 home runs a year.
Geez, for 20. Yeah, he had
Forever.
755.
yeah, he averaged 35 homers a year for like
Yeah.
20 years.
He was hit 4.
And I think you're right,
Yeah.
Hop, in the sense that, he played in Milwaukee and Atlanta. If he was like
New York
or Boston or whatever, it would, he would be thought of the same way as Willie Mays.
Right.
But really, he's better than Willie, really, if you look at the
No,
numbers.
they're equal. Willie Mays won 12 Gold Gloves in center field.
Yeah, Willie Mays, Willie was a better defender.
But they're equal. Come on, Willie Mays would have got
700 hits. I mean, that's
I know. It's the National League record, isn't it? No, until Pete Rose broke it.
Willie Mays.
Yeah.
Do you know that when he retired?
No, Aaron.
Yeah, Aaron has the National League record until Rose broke it. But when he retired, he had tied Babe Ruth with runs scored, 2,174. Only Ricky has scored more runs, and that was only like 20 more. I mean, he had a tremendous, tremendous career. But he was also aided by going to Atlanta when he was older, which was, they called that the launching pad before you had Colorado, which is sending its, Hall of Famers, like Larry Walker.
Willie Mays played forever, too.
He played, but conversely, he played in County, which punished him when he was younger, which was in Milwaukee, which was a pitcher's park. But the consistency of him was tremendous. But, we only got like some minutes. I wrote an article about if Willie Mays had broken Babe Ruth's record, you wouldn't have had what Hank Aaron went through. Because I don't think Hank Aaron was well known in baseball, but he didn't have the celebrity of a Mickey Mantle or Willie Mays. They were famous, They were just famous as just celebrities. If he had played in New York, he'd be probably considered the greatest player ever, which many people do. Well, consider him the greatest player ever.
Consider who? Mays?
No, we're talking about Hank Aaron.
Yeah,
Hank Aaron played in small market teams.
Right.
When you play in New York, Mickey Mantle was the most famous ball player of our time.
Yes.
And he was the equivalent of them until he broke down in his early 30s because of all those injuries. The 3 great players of that era. But then you have Frank Robinson that comes up, but he's a little later. They all came up about the same time. Mays, Mantle, and Aaron. And Mickey was, when we were kids, he was as famous as somebody could be, just like Babe Ruth.
Yeah.
Seems to me Willie Mays, and by the numbers, would always rank higher in MVP voting. He would always he stole bases, unlike Aaron.
Right.
And it seems like he had
and he was the greatest center
He had
fielder.
the better body of work, by the numbers. But you guys lived it, so it's hard to...
I would say they were the equivalent. I call them twins.
Yeah.
Willie had 250 Dinger seasons, 2 MVPs. Hank only won 1, but Hank, that Atlanta Braves team went to the World Series twice, 57-58. Won the first one, 58, lost 58. But up to like 65, they were continually in contention, number 2, coming in number 2. And Hank Aaron, but they had great players with him, Eddie Matthews, who hit 500 dingers. But
a lot of similarities.
Hank in 69 nearly took Atlanta to a half pennant.
Aaron
and
hit
I think
305 his career in.
Oh yeah, Willie hit about 302.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then Mickey he finished 297.
Imagine hitting 300 your whole 20-year career. Like, that's crazy.
Well, that was something big. Now you got guys like Roland 316 and stuff.
He was up for election. He
Yeah.
only got 20%.
Oh, he'll get in the Hall of Fame.
You think
eventually.
so?
Well, there's very few third basemen. That's why Ted Simmons got in the Hall of Fame last year. I wouldn't put him in the Hall of Fame, but there's very few catchers in the Hall of Fame.
Oh, catchers. Yeah, well, that's a tough position, yeah.
Oh, it just wears people out. He caught 1,770 games. You think, well, geez, an outfielder got 3,300. Somebody like Yaz was 34 or 500. But, it just burns you out.
Defense is great and all to the purists, but that ain't on any of these websites how great of a defender you are. Unless you win a Gold Glove, they'll put it in writing. But
well, Rafael Palmeiro won a Gold Glove for first base, even though he's a DH. Remember that, Peter? There's your baseball writers for you.
how'd that happen?
Because it's bull, a lot of the stuff.
That is crap. I could see
that the Gold Glove Award is, I don't know. Sometimes there are like great defenders at positions.
Nettles only won it once
in either league, and probably clearly the best defenders at their position. But a lot of times they don't win the Gold Glove because they hit 198 and nobody really pays attention to them.
So is that subjective or objective? By the numbers?
It's both. No, it's really subjective.
Yeah.
Because defense, until recently, where they got all sorts of computer the stats can't really tell you, because a guy with great range might make more errors. And then somebody is popular, that Cal Ripken. I don't think he was a great shortstop, but he got Gold Gloves.
He wasn't.
Because he was well liked.
I thought he was a good glove. No.
Good, but not as great.
Yeah, he was good.
Mark Belanger.
Smith or Vizquel.
Vizquel. If defense counted, he'd be in, because he was
and
insane.
He will get in.
He should have been in. I would have thought he got voted in.
Well, Dave Concepcion should be in because
a weak
of his
field like
defense.
it is now. I thought he'd get in.
But Gold
Alan
Glove.
Trammell only got in recently, and he was a Hall of Famer, and he passed my eye test, but it took him ages.
Trammell.
Yeah, because but Mark Belanger was a guy who hit around the Mendoza line. He'd hit 198, but he won 8 Gold Gloves but he was the. Before Ozzie Smith, he was the best shortstop. And before him, I won't mention his name because he fell down at third in the last game of 1972.
Louis Aparicio.
He was
of the greats. Definite Hall of Fame.
And yet Yaz hits a inside the park home run, but Louis falls down at third, and they're both at third.
Well, it's
and
funny.
that cost us the pennant.
One moment can absolutely define your career. I mean, look at Buckner. No one knows Buckner was a good hitter. They just think he's the idiot.
Oh, I don't even want to talk about Bill Buckner. Well, thank you.
Well, Bill Buckner was in
that
last home run Hank Aaron hit for his record, right?
Okay, well, we're not going to talk about Bill Buckner because
climb the fence
I want to feel good today.
Didn't he climb the fence in that clip for no reason on Hank Aaron?
Peter, thanks for coming on. We'll have you on. Maybe we'll have you on next week, and we'll talk about when is Coco LeBoy going to get in the Hall of Fame.
We'll have Buckner in studio.
Jeez, it's just my campaign for Coco is going nowhere. But
yeah, it's because the Expos just don't get enough respect.
Oh, that flew by. That was a quick.
Thanks for coming on, Gonzo. Come back. Come tomorrow. Next week.
I'll be here tomorrow.
We might tape the show tomorrow. We
Later,
never
Peter.
know.
Good talking to you.
Take care.
see you, boys.
We'll see you next week at Ward 13. Bye.